Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking through my fitness journey. I always like to say whenever I do talk about my journey that it is never ending. My goals, like a lot of people, will change year to year, and my journey has been very far from linear, as I will go into more detail, but like when I started I did not know that I would be where I am right now in any way, shape or form. So I will go straight into it because it will just make a whole lot more sense. I have made some notes on my phone just so that I don't forget anything or leave anything out, because there has been a lot going on over the past 4.5 years. I started going to the gym when I was 19, just turned 19, so this was back in September 2018. I had just started at uni, literally when like the third day that I had started at uni, that was the first time that I probably went to the gym. What I will do as I am talking, I will sort of insert some photos just so you can see what I look like at this stage, and to give you a bit more context. So I started the gym, didn't know what the heck I was doing. The reason that I started going was because I have always been active. I've always danced through my whole life. When I got to uni, in my very first year of uni, I didn't get into the dance teams straight away. So I basically had no form of exercise or anything to do. So got myself a gym membership instead, thought that would be fun. As I said, didn't really know what I was doing. There were two people who I started following on Instagram who I follow to this day. Lisa Fit and Megan Grubb were the two people, the only like entry to the fitness world that I had. I didn't follow any other type of fitness influencers. Honestly, that whole world was completely new to me. I knew nothing. Those are the two people, and they would post workouts and I would just kind of copy some of the movements. I was quite good in terms of researching things if I wasn't sure. That's just part of my nature. I have always been quite a question answer. Like if I don't know how something works, I want to find out and I want to know the reasons behind it, and I learned a lot that way. But obviously I wasn't following any kind of structure or plan, and I was generally sticking more to the machines and slightly lighter weights. I did attempt a couple of exercises like back squats and barbell hip thrusts, but that was kind of the extent of it. So physique wise, at the point where I started the gym, I was very small. Obviously I was just turned 19, so I was still a teenager and I still had that sort of teen body. My body hadn't really changed a whole lot through my teens. It would have fluctuated a little bit, but I think something that's really worth noting is that up until that point I had had no body image issues whatsoever. I had a very healthy relationship with food, with myself and my body. I lacked a bit of confidence, but that came more from the way I thought people would perceive me in my personality, which sounds really strange, but that was where my lack of confidence came from, rather than from my physique or my body image or anything like that. So when I started the gym, it definitely had nothing to do with the way I looked. It was purely just to keep active. As I said, it was a form of exercise. That was the main reason I was going. Then through that very first year of uni, actually through the first 3 months, they were very, very intense. I really struggled with being away from home. This is something that I spoke about quite a lot on Instagram, like over the past few years I have brought up, but I found myself in a very low place, really struggling with anxiety, with sort of low depressive states, and I did then develop a much less healthy relationship with food and with exercise for a little while as well. I fell into episodes of binge eating, and they did become quite severe. However, at the time I honestly didn't know that's what it was. I had never heard of the term binge eating. I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know that it was a problem, other than the fact that I felt really, really out of control. But I just thought, I don't know, I honestly didn't understand it at all, and that all really did play into each other, and it made me feel a whole lot worse. I gained a fair amount of weight in a very short period of time, and when you look, and again I'll pop some pictures up, but when you look at me, I still was small, and I think that's something that is really worth noting, is that although I still was not large by any means, because I had gained probably about 10 kilograms within 3 or 4 months. So I had gone from being very petite to still small, but my physique had changed, and it was a quick transition. It was a lot of change in a short period of time, and I think that was the hardest thing to wrap my head around. And so in my head I felt huge. I absolutely hated the way that I looked, and it consumed every day. And I think because I was struggling mentally anyway, I was struggling with uni, I hadn't really made any friends, I felt very, very lonely, very, very anxious, and I spent all of my time in my room on my own or at the gym. Food was the first thing that I thought about when I woke up until the second I went to sleep. It quite literally did consume me, and after I would have an episode of binge eating, I would, if the gym was still open, I would go and run or walk on the treadmill, go on a cross trainer for like an hour, even if it was 9 p.m. or if the gym was closed and it was later, like at night, because often those sorts of binging episodes would happen to me at night, in the evening, or even at like 1-2 a.m. I was really struggling with insomnia at this time as well, so that was a big issue. I would get up and go to the gym like first thing in the morning, and it was happening so frequently that I did still gain weight over time. This probably lasted in that intensity of the situation and in that really low place that I was in from, I mean, very, very quickly from when I started uni, probably from October. I started in September, probably from October through Christmas. That very first Christmas whilst I was at uni was really difficult. That was probably one of my lowest times. And I would say it lasted through to probably March. So March, we're now into 2019. Then I did make a bit of a shift. It was the first time that I had downloaded MyFitnessPal, and I started to think a little bit more about my nutrition and how I could control it. But I think that there is a red flag in the word control, because that is what I then started to do a little bit more. I was trying to restrict myself. Obviously I didn't know anything about calories or what I should have been eating. I hadn't accounted for the fact that I was obviously exercising a lot, and how that meant that I would feel hungrier. I started to deal with sort of extreme hunger, like no matter what I ate, I never felt full ever, for quite a long time. But I started to try to reduce my calories a little bit more, did lose a little bit of fat at that point, but again, I was still struggling with binging. That didn't really go anywhere, it just reduced a little bit. This was when I started taking a lot of photos. And I don't want to talk too much about that just in case it's triggering for anyone, but I took a lot of sort of body checking photos. My Snapchat memories were filled with them, and I was constantly looking for any type of progress that I could see. And whilst I do think that progress pictures are such a good tool, don't look at them every single day, don't compare them to ones from yesterday or the day before or the week before. Yeah, I was still really struggling mentally. And I still had no idea what I was doing. I was probably going to the gym throughout this whole period 5 times a week, maybe 6. And this took me through then to summer of that year, so 2019, when I finished my first year of uni, came home again. Over that first summer, I started to follow a little bit more of structure in the gym, followed a bit more of a plan in terms of I did the same things rather than just picking any random workout from Instagram. I would actually do the same movements each time that I was going. So I did build up a little bit more of structure, did start to see some muscle growth, which was great, but I still didn't really have a specific goal. I just enjoyed the gym. I just enjoyed weight training. I enjoyed seeing my strength increase. I enjoyed everything about it. My gym was my safe place when I was actually in the gym. I had come out of the cardio-y side of things, like I wasn't doing excessive cardio anymore. I was just simply weight training, strength training, and I loved it. Definitely felt the best that I felt when I was in the gym. So yes, not much else happened in 2019. I just was the whole year really not in a very good place mentally, and still very, very uneducated around training, around the gym, around anything like that. 2020 then was a year that a lot changed for me personally, mentally, emotionally. I started seeing some changes in my body composition and began to understand what my body needed in terms of calories, in terms of protein. I was still struggling with my body image and dealing with some binging episodes, but they became a lot less frequent. I did start eating better and more for my body, slowly increasing protein intake. It wasn't something I had thought about a whole lot up until that point, and that was actually when I met Ben. So in March of 2020, and yeah, a lot did change for me from that point forward. I've done a lot of work on myself in terms of my relationship with myself, my mental health, in terms of sort of anxiety. So I was generally starting to feel a lot better and a lot more comfortable. And it's also probably worth noting, March 2020 is also when the very first lockdown happened. So I had come back from being at uni, which was a very sort of isolating place for me, where I wasn't necessarily at my happiest. I had been to therapy for the first time, which was amazing. It was a very positive experience. But yeah, I just feel like I had quite a few things sort of knock me down, and I was still struggling. But then meeting Ben, also going into lockdown, meaning I had come home from uni, so I was back at home, I was back in my sort of comfort environment. I was able to heal a lot and to feel a whole million times better, but also to educate myself around fitness. And Ben did help with that because he introduced me to the concept of sort of macros, of calories, of protein, and gave me my starting foot with that. So my relationship with food improved a lot. As I said, the occasional sort of binging episode I would still deal with, but it was very minor, and from then on that pretty much just fizzled out. I've maybe had 1 or 2 periods, maybe of like a week or 2 since then, that it will have occurred again for different reasons. It's been nothing like it was within that first sort of 18 months. So yes, 2020, in terms of the gym, in terms of training, well, from March we were in lockdown, so I continued training at home, and this was actually when I first started posting fitnessy content on Instagram, and I absolutely loved that period of life actually. But we were at home, I had limited access to equipment, so although I was still training, I wasn't really progressively overloading or building any muscle. Through the slightly increased understanding of my nutrition, I had managed to lose a little bit of body fat during this time, so I was starting to feel, and this was sort of the beginning of when my body image did start to improve. I did start to feel happier in how I looked. I still wasn't 100%, and I think it was just, you know, at this point it had been a year and a half, even still not very long, of when I had gained weight, when I had been on that sort of weight gain journey, and it was still just an adaptation. Like, I was still adjusting to how my body was different. None of my old clothes fit anymore. I got rid of a lot of them, most of them, finally. I had been putting that off ages, trying to squeeze back into old clothes, trying to squeeze back into old jeans, and I think that was something that really held me back from moving forward. So I did decide to cleanse, and I use it as an excuse for a good shopping trip. But yeah, that was sort of the start of me starting to feel better. Then that year, I think it was June or July, the gyms opened again for literally a few months, and then they closed again. So that year training wise wasn't ideal, but mentally a lot happened, a lot of really positive transformation. That then takes us to 2021, which I can't believe was already 2 years ago. So for the first half, I was actually out of the gym for a few months with a back injury, but I managed to fully fix my relationship with food at this point. I had a big shift in my relationship with myself, and as I kind of just mentioned, I finally stopped trying to get back to my 2018 teen pre-gym, pre-weight gain body, and I started to fully actually accept myself the way that I was, and I was genuinely happy with the way that I was. Even if it wasn't my ideal physique, even if it wasn't my dream physique, I accepted myself 100% for how I was at that stage. In the second half of that year, so second half of 2020, I actually got educated. Finally, best thing to happen to me for sure, through doing my PT course, my qualification. I decided at this point, because I was in a really happy, healthy place in terms of my relationship with myself and with food and with exercise, I decided that, okay, I have fully accepted myself just as I am, and I would have accepted myself if I stayed exactly how I was. However, I wasn't happy in that I knew I wanted to make another change. So I decided I didn't want to only accept how I was, I wanted to actually be happy. And this then started the more serious stage of my physique development, I would say. So I was educated on nutrition now, so I was eating to actually fuel myself and to actually be able to reach my goals. The very end of 2021, I was at a stage of maintenance, so it's just where you're consuming the number of calories you need to maintain a scale weight, but you can still shift your body composition. So I was seeing my fat mass reduce and my muscle mass increase, and that kind of carried me through to the end of 2021. Something that had really changed at this point was that I started to push myself a million times harder in the gym. Train with much more structure, was definitely following more of a plan at this point, not a written out plan as such, but I tracked my workouts in my phone, and I would make sure I was doing the same exercises week on week, and I was training very consistently, and I was training hard. And that definitely came from training with Ben, having someone to actually push you, and the difference between stopping because you're bored or tired compared to stopping because you physically cannot do another rep. Going into 2022, this is when I did my first sort of gaining phase, then into my first proper fat loss phase. So up until this point, as I had mentioned, I had gained weight, I had gained muscle, I had gained fat, and then I had lost fat. I had done all of those things, but they had been more through kind of incidentally coming about, which is I think why I mentally struggle with it a lot more, because none of it was a plan. 2022 was the first time when I went into something and I was like, okay, I am going to do a bit of a gaining phase or a bulk, then I'm going to go into a fat loss phase or a cut, and then hopefully like I will have shifted my physique in a way that I really, really wanted to. During that time, I absolutely fell in love with the process of getting stronger. It was also during this year that I started up my online coaching business. I graduated from uni with a first in psychology. I travelled, I enjoyed my body, I enjoyed life. Probably the best year that I have ever had. It's always going to hold a really special place in my heart. I did my fat loss phase until I went on holiday that year in June. Then through the summer until sort of December, I pretty much just maintained. I was very, very happy with where I was at this point physique wise. I felt very, very comfortable. Just feeling good all round. I was educated, I knew what I was doing. I was helping other women to transform their selves, their body, their minds, which honestly fulfills me more than I can actually put into words or explain. And if you are one of my clients, if you are watching, I love being your coach. It is the joy of my life. It gets me up every morning and makes me happy to go about my day and to work. And I say work because sometimes it doesn't even feel like a job. I just love it. I love it so much. So that year, as I said, I was starting to feel comfortable in terms of where I was at, and I decided I wanted to push myself more and to level up. So I got a coach in around September through to November, but it didn't work out. That one just wasn't for me. It wasn't what I was looking for. So I ended that coaching, and then in December looked a lot more into coaches and found someone who was exactly what I wanted. I've now been working with her since December. Her name is Evie. She is amazing, and she put me into a gaining phase straight away. Now in all honesty, I probably would have wanted, when I went to her, I think what I said was that I wanted to go into a fat loss phase, because in my head that's what I thought I needed to get to the next level. I just thought I needed to be leaner. But what she did was definitely the best thing. She said, "You're in a good place, let's focus on growth, because you need to spend more time on growth than you do on fat loss if you're looking at like the period of 12 months. To get to that next level, yeah, okay, I could just lean down and lean down and lean down, but I still wouldn't actually have the physique I wanted because I needed to build more muscle underneath." So in a gaining phase since then, so since December, so December, January, we've done 3 whole months, and I'm going to carry this gaining phase through until I think April or May. Then I'm going to do a little fat loss phase, sort of cut down for summer. It's not going to be too long. I've actually managed to sustain a fairly good composition through gaining, a little higher body fat than I'm potentially comfortable with, but actually a lot less than I anticipated. I'd really got into my head thinking like I'd be happy with, like, if I did gain a fair amount, like I was cool with that. I just wanted to do whatever I needed to do to level up in that way. Been amazing. I am absolutely loving it, and that kind of brings us up to now. We are in the present, so I am in a gaining phase right now. So I'm training 5 times a week currently. I am doing 3 lower body days and 2 upper body days. That is where I'm at right now. Honestly, I am in the best place. I'm feeling excited just to see what I can achieve this year and to be able to continue to use my knowledge to help other people as well. Hopefully it's got across that I have really been through a lot of different phases already, whether it has been intentional or not. So I know how difficult it can be to gain weight. I know how difficult it can be to not feel comfortable in your body, and I also know what it's like to want to change yourself. But I think there's a lot of culture right now around body positivity, which is absolutely amazing, but it can also put a bit of shame on you if you want to make a change, and I don't think that that's fair, and I don't think that that's right, because if you want to change, as long as it's not coming from a place of hate towards yourself, and that is something that I always say to my clients, if they are hating themselves and that is the only reason that they want to make a change, no matter how you change your body, it will not change that. And I can say that from experience, that comes from something else, and you need to work on that separately. If you do really dislike the way that you look, of course, if you're able to change it in a healthy and sustainable way, and having particularly the support of those around you as well, of course it's going to have a positive influence. But you can achieve whatever you want to do, but just make sure it's coming from a place of respect for yourself and loving and being kind to yourself along the way. But it doesn't mean that you have to stay exactly as you are. Like I mentioned before, when I made that change from just wanting to accept myself to actually be super happy and confident in myself, that was the best thing that I did, and it took my whole journey to, yeah, a whole nother stage, which I'm super happy and grateful for. So I will stop there because I could honestly talk forever, and I'm hoping this video isn't going to be too long because I'm pretty sure I have been filming for a good like half an hour, so hopefully it won't be that long when I put it up. Hopefully I've been able to narrow it down. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and drop the video a like if you did enjoy this. That really will mean a lot to me, and I will catch you in the next video.